Hey, what's going on today, guys? It's Trey. Welcome back to the channel. As always, welcome back to sunny, beautiful Germany. Now, as you guys can tell by the title, today we're going to be talking about nudity, but not just nudity anywhere. We're going to be talking about nudity right here in Germany. Now, quick disclaimer, this is not going to be a traditional video. I'm sure when a lot of people think about Germany, they don't really think about nudity, but it exists on a pretty large scale here in Germany from what I can see. So I have some questions for you guys. I'm going to talk about my observations. And then after all is said and done, hopefully we can all leave with a clear understanding of nudity right here in Germany. So stay tuned. Let's get into it. Now, just a couple of quick disclaimers that I wanted to make before we venture too deep into this topic and into this video. Hi, my name is Trey. I'm an American living here in Stuttgart, Germany. I am from the state of Florida in the United States as well. So many people ask me what state I'm from specifically, but I do come from the Sunshine State. Now, I've lived here in Germany for over a year now, and I love everything about this country. Sure, there are some things that are pretty tough, but for the most part, especially coming from where I come from, life is pretty great here in Germany. I don't really have too many complaints. All right, I don't want to waste any more time. Let's go ahead and talk. For a lot of people that live here in Germany, we know it's starting to get really hot outside. And so for me, if you guys don't know by now, or if you're new to the channel, I like to run. I run all over Stuttgart. I've got the runner's high right now. I've lost about 35 pounds. Like, I just feel great. So I'm outside all the time. When I leave work, I come home and I run. I love running so much, and I love that outdoors. With that being said, I've started to notice a pretty common occurrence happening in my part of Stuttgart. So the other day when I was running, I actually run through the woods, I run through public parks, I run through Stuttgart Universität, like I run all over. But one day specifically last week, I noticed something in a public park that caught me by surprise, I'm not gonna lie. So as I'm running through the park near my house, I actually noticed this older couple standing in the center of this park, and they weren't just standing, they were standing completely nude. And I would say this couple had to be maybe like mid 60s, late 60s, maybe early 70s. They were a little bit older. They both looked great in my opinion, but they were nude, and it was the middle of the day and it was hot outside. Now, just a few short meters away was actually a playground where children were there as well. When I think of conservative places like Texas in the United States, or Georgia, or Alabama, or Mississippi, or Tennessee, or pretty much any place in the southeastern United States, those are extremely conservative places, and you don't really see nudity at all, right? And so Stuttgart is an extremely conservative place. And I'm talking to the point where people, when they see my tattoos, right, or they see my hat backwards, they stare at me, and they stare hard, and they're not typically happy about it. They're wondering, like, why does this guy look this way, right? I don't get that in Munich. I don't get that in Berlin. I don't get that really anywhere else in Germany. I definitely don't get it in Frankfurt. It's really only something that happens here in Baden-Württemberg. So when I saw these old people butt naked, literally not even socks on, not even shoes on, I was completely stunned. So I continue my run, and as I'm actually finishing my run, I just can't get the image of these two, let's just call them senior citizens, out of my head. So I had just come to the conclusion that maybe this was just an isolated incident, because I run all the time and I don't really see too many nude people.
Too soon, Junior.
So we ended up going to Munich about a week later, and while we were driving into Munich, I noticed that there was this large park off to the right as we were driving into the city, and I actually noticed that this entire section of the park, there were nude people everywhere. So I don't know if this was a nudist park. I'm gonna actually put the name of the park somewhere here on the screen so some of you guys that live in Munich know what I'm talking about. But I saw a ton of nude people there. They were laying down, they were dancing, they were listening to music, they were having conversations, and they were completely nude. Not even flip-flops, not even Crocs, just completely nude. No socks, no none of that. Just completely nude and speaking to one another. So after seeing the older couple in the park, and then seeing literally hundreds of people butt naked in this public park in Munich, it really got me interested into learning about nudist culture here in Germany. Now, I know Europe, for the most part, is completely different when it comes to the United States in terms of nudity. And in fact, in the United States, legally speaking, you can really screw yourself up by even using the restroom in the public place. You can actually be put on the sex offender registry if there's kids anywhere within the area and you find yourself having to take a leak or use the bathroom. If somebody reports that to the authorities, boom, you're automatically on the sex offender registry. So the United States is, in my opinion, living in the dark ages when it comes to nudity, but Europe, on the other hand, is completely different. Europe, for the most part, is very relaxed when it comes to nudity. There are some countries, obviously, where it is extremely conservative, right? Turkey, for example, where you won't see any nudity at all. But for the most part, most countries in Europe don't have any issues with nudity. And really the conclusion that I came to is it ultimately comes down to societal views on the human body, right? So in the United States, a country which for the most part is pretty affluent, right? Some of you guys might not agree with that, but for the most part it is. And it's crazy, you know, as advanced of a country as the United States is, I'm sure some people might disagree with that statement, but for as advanced as the country is, the country sadly is living in the dark ages when it comes to the human body in general. And I don't want to get too political about this, but there's a lot of policing of other people's bodies, especially women in general, right? So men can walk outside, you know, without a shirt on and there's no issue. But, you know, as soon as a woman decides to wear a certain type of swimsuit or a two-piece or something like that, people automatically think like, oh, that woman's opening up herself to sex or a certain type of treatment. And in my opinion, that is just complete bullshit at the end of the day. And it's such an old way of thinking, and hopefully we can get past that. But in Europe, on the other hand, it's not like that, and it's such a relief in my opinion, because I really don't think we should be policing anyone's bodies. People should be able to wear whatever they want, and if people don't want to wear anything, that is their choice. We shouldn't be treating people specific ways based off of what they wear or what they choose not to wear. It's such an old way of thinking. And even though Germany is a pretty conservative country from a European standpoint, the views here on nudity are very open, and people for the most part nationwide are very open-minded and receptive to nudity on a national scale. And it's just been really cool to see. And it's actually really funny, you know, since I've seen the nude couple and since I saw the large scale, I guess, nude affair happening in Munich, I've started to notice more and more nude people around the city, to the point where I even see my neighbors in the nude. And so I've just learned that, man, this is completely normal here, and there's nothing to be shocked about. There's nothing to like get super emotional about, or like I shouldn't feel a certain way. It's completely normal, and there's nothing wrong with it. So I think it'll be very interesting to get back to the States, because I haven't been back to the States in what seems like years, right? And so I think it'll be interesting to get back there and sort of see how much has changed, which obviously I just feel like the United States is going downhill at such a rapid pace. It's like a runaway train at this point. But I think it'll be interesting to get a solid comparison of how we view nudity here in Europe versus how nudity is in the United States at this point in time. Because even when I was in the United States in the past, nudity was just not something that was viewed too highly upon. So it's like, shit, on my runs now, you know, when I see a naked couple laying out in a field somewhere, I wave, because typically they wave at me. You know, if you're choosing not to wear clothes, typically those people are pretty open-minded and pretty nice. And so, you know, we give a wave to each other, and like, I just keep it moving. I don't think twice about it. And I'm glad that I had that one experience seeing the older couple. I know for a lot of people, they're like, Trey, you were glad to see nude people? Like, let's pump the brakes for a second. What I mean is, I was happy to see people living their lives without having to worry about, you know, other people harassing them, or just, you know, being free from judgment. And even in a place like Stuttgart, the fact that I see nude people here all the time, it's cool, man. I'm not gonna lie, it's cool for me. And shit, moving forward, I might even one day go lay out in a park nude somewhere. Another thing I wanted to hit on real quick is spa culture here in Germany. Now, I will admit, I'm not like the biggest spa person in the world. I don't even really like having massages done. Like, I'm just not really into that. But I've noticed, because my wife is into that, I've noticed that nudity and spa culture here in Germany specifically go hand in hand, right? You know, in the United States, when you go to, let's say, a public sauna or like a public pool or something like that, you always have to wear clothes. There's even some saunas and some spas where they literally tell women specifically, which I think is really messed up, is they tell them that they can only wear a one-piece swimsuit. So it's like, seriously, I know I've said this like 2 or 3 times, it's like the dark ages over there in the United States. Europe, it's a completely different story over here. So spa culture, yeah, you walk in there, you know, they give you a robe or you bring your own robe, or sometimes you're just walking in there with a towel. As soon as you get in there, you drop that towel and anything goes, right? Like, and it's just how it is, you know? Women see women naked, men see men naked, and there's just no thoughts in people's heads like, man, I want to do something to this woman, or oh, I want to do something to this man. It's just normal here. It's just completely normalized in Germany. So real quick before we end the video, I did just want to tell you guys a couple of quick stories. So one thing is, so I live in Feingen, which is a really nice neighborhood here in Stuttgart. There's houses, there's apartments. It's really just a nice area. It's quiet, and people are really friendly there. So I've started to notice now, as the weather is getting better, that people are starting to shed off their clothes. And it actually gets to the point where I've started to notice some of my neighbors just completely in the nude, doing yard work, you know, performing maintenance on their yards and like working on their equipment. And I think that it's pretty interesting just to see, because I know in the United States, right, if I were to be doing that, or if I were to be nude, like in my yard doing my own thing, somebody would call the cops. The cops would come and I would be arrested for public indecency, right? And I would have a pretty serious charge on my record, right? And I would end up being indicted and most likely convicted, right? Because you really can't defend yourself against that. If somebody says they see you nude, right, and God forbid if they take a picture, you're out of here, man. That's a serious charge. And like I said, you will most likely end up on the sex offender registry, which follows you for years of your life. And so, yeah, I think that is pretty cool. And I think it's pretty interesting that people just choose to live here, you know, and if they want to wear clothes, they can wear clothes. And sometimes, you know, I even see old dudes and old ladies just out in their yards in their underwear, right? Like trimming trees, you know, cutting fruit off their trees. They're just living life to the fullest. And the final thing I wanted to tell you, and I've actually noticed this a lot over the last couple of weeks. So I am an individual that loves to be nude, right? When I come home, I take my clothes off and man, I'm just nude. Like no shame in my game. I don't shut the windows. I'm just doing my thing. Like, let me do my thing. Clothes are a little bit restrictive for me, and it's hot and we don't have AC in Germany. So it's like, let me get out of these things and I just want to be nude, man. I just want to live my life and do my own thing. What I've started to notice is one of my neighbors, this lady, man, she like has gotten it down to a T. She has gotten my schedule down to a T. And so every time my clothes are off, every time I'm nude, I see this lady all the time. She's got red hair, so it's very difficult to miss her. And I see her all the time. And she has to know who I am. And so the other day I was getting ready to start my run. You guys are gonna get a kick out of this. I saw this lady coming out of her house and we just both smiled at each other. Cause I'm like, man, I know you know who I am. So I just think it's pretty funny. I don't know if my wife's gonna want to hear that, but it is what it is. So I know this topic isn't one that gets discussed a lot, but it's just one that I couldn't pass over because I think that it's very important to the German identity, and nudity in general is just such a sign of resistance. And it's also a huge relief. Just think of the act of removing your clothes, right? After a long day, after a hot day, if your clothes are wet, it's just literally a sign of freedom. It feels good. And I think that it's very important for people to understand that there's nothing wrong with nudity. If somebody wants to sit out in their yard without any clothes on, that's their choice. If somebody wants to go to a beach and not wear any clothes, that's their choice, on European soil at least. I know in the United States, it's not like that, right? It's very closed-minded. There are some places where there are nudist beaches, but even there, for some reason, people that don't like nudity or nudism, let's call it, they go there and they give people a hard time. So it's just, hopefully one day, and it doesn't seem like that day is coming soon, but just hopefully one day people in the United States can free their minds and, just sort of remove the shackles and chains from their hands, from their minds, and just remove all fear from the equation, or fear of what's different. I don't mean to go on a rant about the United States, but it's really embarrassing to see the shape of my home country, and something as trivial as nudity for me is a topic in the United States that is so taboo. It's really sad and a little bit alarming to see. So with that being said, that is gonna do it for me. I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. I hope you found some entertainment in it. I hope that for anybody out there that has a certain viewpoint on nudity, especially if it's a negative one, hopefully this video will help broaden your horizons and open your mind to something that is normal at the end of the day in the rest of the sane world. I just hope that we can have some really important dialogue surrounding this topic, right? Because it's something that's not going to come to an end here in Germany. It's something that's not going to come to an end in Europe. And eventually, once more people start opening their minds in the United States, it's something that's not going to come to an end there. People are going to be nude. It is skin. It doesn't mean that somebody wants to have sex with you, or it doesn't mean that somebody's just trying to be sexual. It's just people trying to live their lives. And the sooner that people start thinking about that, the better off we'll be as a society. So as always, thank you guys for the continued love and support. If you have any questions for me, I'm gonna link my Instagram in the description below. I love you guys, I miss you guys. Thank you for all the continued love and support. Thank you. Mahalo for watching.